Hi, I'm Eric. This is lesson 2 of beginner ukulele. As I mentioned in the first lesson, I'm using a concert uke. And just so you know, soprano ukes and concert ukes have the same tuning. So everything that you learn on the concert uke can be applied to the soprano. So if you're using a soprano uke, that's okay. They seem to be a little more common. That's why I mentioned that. So just to recap what we talked about in lesson 1, we learned the C chord and the F chord, and I think I also mentioned the C7, but C and F were the two main ones for lesson 1, and be sure and watch that if you haven't. And today we're going to be learning another chord, the G chord, and we're going to be doing some simple strumming patterns, and we're going to learn just a little bit about music notation, or at least the first part of that. We'll kind of introduce elements of music notation and music theory a little bit as we go. Okay, so just to also review our finger exercise that I gave you in lesson 1, which is really important and really good, and I think it's really important to do that every day when you practice your ukulele. So this is just a review of what I talked about very quickly. So first finger, first fret, second finger, second fret, third finger, third fret, and just doing that on all the strings. Okay, so keep doing that. That's good. And that's first position, and that's important to get used to doing. And then our C chord, which was, again, just a review, third fret on the A string. That's a C note. And here's our C chord. All right, and then the F chord, that was first fret on the E string, and then second fret on the G string. Okay. All right, and I'll have those show up on the screen next to me so you can see what those are. So C, and you can just again, like we were doing in lesson 1, just simple strums. All right, and then F, same thing, just simple strums. Okay, now, so the new one today is the G chord. All right, G is a little tricky at first because it uses 3 fingers, and remember our finger numbers, 1, 2, 3, right? Index is 1, 2, and 3. When you're first starting out on the G chord, just press the second fret of the C string. That is a D note. I think it's good to play each note as you go, just so you can really hear it and you know what you're supposed to be, what it's supposed to sound like. So that's a D. All right. So once you get comfortable with just pressing that note, and actually you're going to use your first finger. Of course, I went through all that time telling you, never use your first finger for the second fret. Well, when you play chords, you have to do different configurations in order to hold the strings down. Here's what the G chord's going to sound like. So in order to do that, we've got to use our first finger on the second fret. And then second finger is going to go back here on the A string, and that's the second fret of the A string. Remember, the A string is the one closest to the floor. Okay. And that's a B note. So we've got D and B. And I would just start with those two. Now the funny thing about this, you'll notice, both fingers are on the second fret, which is a little funny. And notice how my hand is kind of turned. My palm is kind of facing down towards the body. And I do that to make it a little bit easier to reach those 2 notes. And then the third step is to add the third finger. But you press these 2 just the way I'm doing them for a little while to get used to it. And even just strum. It's not a full G chord, but it's a start. So just strum that for a little while. And then when you're really used to that, and practice taking your hand off and then putting it on again, just to kind of get used to, that's really important actually. You should do that a lot, because you're training your fingers how to press in just the right way to get those notes. So second fret on the A string and second fret on the C string. And that gives you a B. This note down here is D. Okay, now when those are comfortable, then you can add the third finger, and that's going to go right here on the third fret, okay, of the E string. And that's a G, that note, G. And there's your G chord. Okay, keep with your simple strumming pattern. Don't have to do anything fancy at this point. And we were talking about counting in fours. That's still good. So just count 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. And then you can try threes. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Start out with a nice, slow, easy tempo, and then you can pick it up a little bit if you want. And then if you're really feeling good, you can try up strumming. Now with up strumming, I use the back of my thumb, and we talked about this a little bit in lesson 1. Down strum, back of your finger, up strum, back of your thumb. And again, basically just a wrist motion, a little bit of forearm motion there. By the way, I tend to strum right here on the ukulele. It's just kind of the way it works out for me. Everybody's arms are different, so it doesn't have to be over the sound hole. It can be a little bit here, that's fine. Okay, so now that you've got G chord, it'll take a little while to get comfortable with it, so keep working on that. Okay, so here's our C chord that we did before, and our F chord, the other one we learned on lesson 1. A little out of tune there. And there's our G chord, that's the new one. So we've got C, okay, so now you've got 3 chords, C, F, and G, and they kind of go together. There's a lot of songs that you can play, and in lesson 3, we'll try one of those. Before we stop, I wanted to talk just a little bit about music notation. There's something called a treble clef sign. If you've taken instruments, you know what that is. Basically what it is, well, there's the staff lines, right? How music is written on those lines. Okay, there's 5 lines on the staff, and I'm going to have some pictures on the screen so you can see what I'm talking about. And a treble clef sign tells us that we're working in the upper register of notes. So above middle C on the piano, to the right of middle C, the higher notes. So a lot of instruments use the treble clef: ukulele, guitar, mandolin, violin, trumpet, flute, just to name a few. And we're going to be learning how to read some notes. So starting in pretty soon, we're going to be looking at some notes. But for now, just know that we're going to be using a treble clef sign, so just try to get familiar with it, familiarize yourself with it. And the 5 staff lines, we'll go over that a little bit more next time too. Okay, so C chord, F chord, and G chord, and practice those, and keep doing your finger exercises. Right? Okay, very good. And we'll see you next time for a song. Okay, thanks so much. Bye-bye.